Welcome to the Level Up Your Band podcast, episode 20. Hello and welcome back to the Level Up Your Band podcast. My name is Gavin Patterson and I'm here with a beanie wearing Argentinian bass player, Julian Pombo.
A beanie baby. Yes.
A beanie baby with a Beatles
Hello.
t-shirt, and he copied me because I'm wearing a Beatles t-shirt as well, and it's Abbey Road, and he's also wearing Abbey Road. But
Screw you copied me.
he has his
what happened.
grayscale because he's edgy boy.
Yeah. 100%.
So how are
Cool.
you this week?
All right, so what are we talking about today, Gavin?
He's getting right into it.
The delay. I'm talking over you. This is
Yeah.
so bad.
Yeah, so we already
Sorry.
started this episode and we failed miserably because the internet's genuinely terrible today. So this is the second time we've started this. So yeah, we'll just assume we're both fine and we'll just carry on.
Yeah. That should work.
Today we are talking about how to choose a recording studio. So this is a bit of an interesting topic because as a studio owner myself, I personally have never had to think about this from a musician's perspective, but I think about this a lot from a studio owner's perspective, because I'm trying to figure out how I can, persuade bands to come to my studio. But me as a musician, I have only recorded in, I think, 2 studios that's not my own, on 2 occasions. It's rare.
All right, okay.
So I didn't actively go out and look for a studio. It was usually a band I was in or someone I was working for, and they had a session booked somewhere, and I just went in and did the thing. And so I didn't actually have to find one. So we can start on some criteria that I think about from a studio owner's perspective. This is maybe things I think about and think that musicians may want to know or want to see. Whether this is helpful or not, it's up to you guys. So it's
I mean,
take what you will from this. So the first and most important thing I would say is having clear access to the studio's discography or past recordings. That's a given. Like, that's the first thing a musician should be looking for on a studio's website, I think. You want to see, what does this studio, what kind of quality is this studio pumping out? And it should be the first and foremost thing that you see in a studio's website, I would say. As soon as you log into www.recordingstudio.com, the first thing that should pop up is, this is the stuff that I have recorded. And there's a couple of things that me personally, looking at other studios, because obviously I have to look at what other people are doing just to see what the trends are and stuff. I'm always wary about the studios that post up recordings and they're all over the place. So you've got a heavy metal song, then underneath that, track 2, you've got a country song, then you've got a folk song, then you've got a jazz song. That studio for me is sending massively mixed messages, because it just says to me that this guy will take any job, any work, and that is a red flag for me, because I would rather, if I was a jazz musician, I would rather book a studio that really, really knows jazz and only jazz. And there are some engineers who live and breathe jazz. That's all they do. And I would bet my life that they would be better than some jack of all trades studio that just record anything that comes through the door. That's number one, I would say. Because, I mean, I do get the odd email from the odd rapper or hip-hop artist, and I just immediately just say, sorry, I don't do that. It's just not in my ballpark. I don't know anything about the genre. I don't know anything about the style of music, or it's just not, it just doesn't do anything for me. You know, the majority of people that are in my area and the people who come in here are mostly 4-piece, 5-piece rock bands. You know, there's different variations of that. So I do sort of light rock all the way up to sort of thrashier, post-punk, indie. Yeah.
You've done some metal stuff as well, haven't you?
In my very early days, I did metal and realised that I'm not into it. I'm not as into it as I should be, and I've stopped it. So if I ever get inquiries for metal, unless it's like tracking vocals, but if it's a full production, I'll just say no, because it's not my thing, and I'm not gonna ruin someone's project by just taking it on. I'm not gonna do as well as a studio that does only metal. It's different if you're a big establishment and there's like 5 engineers and they all have their own craft. Like you have a jazz guy in-house, a folk guy. Then you could make the argument that you could book a studio and have the jazz guy or the funk guy. But I am just one guy. And I just like sort of poppy, indie, rock bands, you know, melodic choruses, hand claps, tambourines, big drums, nice cool guitars, you know, Strat kind of Marshall amp kind of vibes. That's my kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be number one for
Fair
me.
enough.
Is make sure your the studio message is clear when you come on. If it's just like, we offer recordings, we offer tracking, we offer editing, we offer mastering, we offer lessons, we offer everything. It's like, whoa. It just feels a bit like, okay, are they really going to be good at everything? Unlikely. Plus, it depends on your level as well. If you're starting out, you probably want to get a studio that does the tracking, the mixing, and the mastering. So, I tend to deal with bands who are kind of starting out and maybe haven't recorded a big release before, and I'll take in the first time they've ever come to a recording studio. I'll track them. I'll take them right through the process until they have the finished product, and that's probably the best thing to have if you're starting out. But if you're maybe more into it, and you're thinking about possibly getting signed to a label, you'll end up doing tracking in one studio, sending the mixes off to somewhere else to be edited and mixed, and then sending them to someone else to be mastered. Now, that can happen with me as well. I do occasionally send stuff off to be mastered elsewhere. But yeah, just things to think about. Next point, quite an important one from my perspective. We'll get onto the musician's perspective later, but easy to get in touch with. Just in general, it's just a general rule of thumb for business, is how approachable are these people. So you go to the website, there's a phone number, and you phone and you just get a voicemail. Okay, that's fine. Or maybe the guy will get back. He doesn't get back to you. All right, I'll maybe try an email. Nothing. Or maybe go to the studio's Facebook page, and then you get like an autoresponder and no reply for 6 days. It's maybe a little bit of a red flag, because you think if you're going to be like doing a 10-track album and the studio guy takes 6 days to get back to you
that's going to be an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, especially
it'll take you like years to get that that album out.
Yeah, I've had clients in the studio multiple times, and they say they maybe worked with another studio somewhere else and doing the mixing process with the, the studio does the mix, and then they get the mix through on OneDrive or Dropbox. That's another red flag, by the way. WeTransfer, yuck.
Yeah, I hate WeTransfer
and
so
then
much.
It's like
worst.
a to and fro. So what happens is you get the mix, and they go, "Oh, the mix is great," but I think John's vocals needs to go up, in the backing vocals in the verse need to go up a little bit, and then that response time, if it's not, I would say a day, 2 days is kind of roughly acceptable. If it's a week and you haven't heard from the studio for that one change, if you can figure that out in the beginning, where they don't get back to you for a week, when you're in that mixing process and you're just trying to make little tweaks like that, just to get a couple of guitars turned up or more reverb on the vocals, that little process on each song, it can end up taking months. So you want to know that in advance. When this is the last point I've got, I might think of more, but when you begin talking to the studio, as a musician, now I'm putting this out there for musicians because I encounter it sometimes. The topic of conversation between a band and a studio should never exclusively be about the gear and the technology. It should be about the main question that I want to ask a band and want to get the answer to is, where do you see yourself after this album release, EP, whatever, has been put out there? What do you want from this? Why are you doing this? Why are you recording this music? Because that's it's not often discussed. Like, why are you doing this? Because when you get to know that, that's the motivation that's their main motivation. And that's what we should be focusing on. If you want to do it because you want to be a rock star, cool. That's fine. If you want to do it because I don't know, there's some connection to the songs or whatever, you want to get your ideas out there, or you just want to leave something behind so that there's something for future generations to listen to when you're gone. There's a big part of that for me as well. I think I talked about that before. Like, it's nice having all these recordings out there that I contributed to that will outlive me, hopefully. It's kind of an out there thing. I don't know, but talking to the engineer about why you want to do this, why this is important to you, I think is more important than talking about, do you have a Marshall blah 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 number of this and this type of cab that was only released for 6 months during the 1990s, blah 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 gear crap means nothing for me. It's focusing on the music. That's kind of it from my perspective. So the next steps, the perspective of a musician, this is where you come in, because you have actively.
I'm a musician. Yeah, hello.
you are a musician.
Yes, I guess. So, I'm in a very lucky position that I already know a pretty decent engineer. So this is quite bad, but I don't really. I never think about, I'm going to go to this studio. It's always going to be like, I wonder if Gavin's going to be free to do this or that, right? So if you're lucky to be in the same position as me, then great. Mm-hmm. But if not, there are a couple of things. We sort of wrote a couple of things down, and the thing number one should be, if you're booking a studio, the band, the studio, look at the bands that this studio has worked with. Yeah. So, and it goes back to the same thing, like, that you were talking about specializing in something. So, there's no point if you're like a punk band, and then like, you know, booking in a session with a guy who is really good but has only ever done like traditional music, or like little, like, you know, or and stuff like that, or even like somebody who just does metal mixes, you know, like same thing.
It's like getting Hans Zimmer to produce Slipknot. It just wouldn't. It just would be so bizarre.
Yeah, it would just. I mean, I don't know. It might sound epic. Actually, I'm thinking about it. It might actually sound pretty good. That's the one exception. But yeah, that's sort of thing number one. And then what kind of follows in after that is, don't just stop at like, oh, it looks like they've recorded a bunch of punk bands, so probably let's go with them. No, you should, you know, this is, I don't know if it's boring, but like, you should take the time to sit down and listen to what they've actually worked on, right? It's well enough sort of looking and having like a quick browse and going, oh yeah, they've worked with this and this and that and that. Like, go, okay, I'm going to listen to this album or this EP, or like these couple of tracks that they've worked on, and take notes, you know.
Even
like,
message them.
Oh,
speak to them.
I like that. Or, yeah.
Possibly.
Because,
you know, what was this guy like to work with?
Yeah, for sure. And then there's two other ones. So I guess the first one would be, do you know anybody that's already worked with this person? Because that helps a lot already. Unfortunately, it can be interesting to sort of like take a shot in the dark and go, I'm going to go with this person. But the best, you know, you want to, you know, this is going to be money and time you're going to be spending. So it's better to, you know, talk to as many people as you know and ask them like, oh, I'm wanting to record some stuff, who have you worked with? And they'll give you a bunch of names and testimonials, whatever. So talk to them, listen to them, you know, and get a couple of names down and that kind of thing. Ask other people of like, oh, I've heard about so-and-so, what do you think? You know, that, because somebody might have had a good experience, somebody might have not, you know. You need to sort of match them up, see what the whole deal is. Because at the end of the day, you want to be working with somebody that's actually good to work with.
What's your thoughts on choosing a studio based on price alone? Saying, oh, this is the cheapest studio, so I'll go with this one.
That's dangerous, I think. But and the reason I think that's kind of dangerous is because choosing anything based on price is bad, and that goes both ways, right? So like choosing a studio because, oh well, they seem quite expensive, right? So they must be good.
Nope.
No, not at all. There's plenty of expensive things that are absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
And that sometimes can go, that can sometimes be the case with some studios, you know. It might be that they charge this much, but then you go in and the guy's an absolute plonker and really hard to work with, and does a really half-arsed job and then sends you on your way, you know. So yeah, that's something to definitely don't go with price. If it happens to be that it's a really good bargain, that's a bonus, really.
Yeah.
You know? And that's the way you should sort of be thinking about it.
Yep.
And is there anything else? Oh, we had a bit of a heated discussion about this point, because we didn't... Gavin has a very strong opinion about this. I'm a bit 50-50 on it. I don't really care. But I suppose it's a studio thing. So look at what kind of setup it is, right? So is it mostly like a digital setup that they use? There's nothing wrong with that, right? Because there's a lot of really good things about working digitally, and that, to be honest, like, I would prefer in some cases to go with somebody who is mostly digital, maybe has one or two interesting wee sort of like analog-y type things, maybe has like a really cool amp that they can reamp through, right? But for example, in the case of Gavin, you're completely digital. Everything is that you do is
yeah,
yeah, and it basically it sounds like the real thing, because we've come along that far in technology.
Yeah.
This would have probably been more of an issue like 10,
10,
20
50,
years ago.
Yeah, definitely.
That around that kind of time. But then again, if you really know what kind of sound you like, it might be worth checking to see if there's somebody who maybe works with more sort of analog equipment, because maybe that's the sound you're going for. The only thing that's going to impact, though, is that analog stuff is finicky and it takes time to work with, and it could end up being more expensive. But that's at your own discretion. So have a look and do your research and that kind of thing.
The thing with digital for me is recallability. That's the main thing for me. Is I can recall a mix I did 6 years ago just by clicking a button, whereas someone with an analog studio, who used a special type of compressor on the snare, that compressor that I had blew up 3 years ago, so I can never achieve that sound again. I would have to recreate it with another compressor, blah, 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 blah. So if someone comes down the line, another client or an old client comes back and goes, we're doing a different mix of this, someone wants it for a remix, or we're sending it off to some production company that are doing a set of adverts, and they want the vocals taken off, I can go back to that mix I did 5 years ago and just take the vocals off, and I don't have to, knock the dust off of an old compressor that I haven't used since then. And, some of these analog studios, they can take like 2 hours to get all the settings back to where they were because they have to write them all down. That's the main sort of thing. Plus, it's a price thing, for me.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
It's just insane the analog cost, and the space to house it all. Yeah, I know people can get hung up on, this analog sort of mysterious sort of. It's got this sort of mysterious vibe about it, like almost as if it's analog, it must be better. Not always the case.
Although I'm sure there's some guys who are absolute, wizards with it, and if you find one that's like that and that's the case, then why not try it?
Yeah.
But there's pros and cons to everything.
Yeah.
Probably more cons to working analog than working digitally, but it's all it is what it is.
For me, it should be less about, like I said before, it should be less about the gear and more about the end product.
Yeah, for sure.
Because if I listen to the end product and I go, wow, that sounds amazing, and then I find out it was achieved digitally, I'm not going to go, oh no, I'm not going to go there because it's digital. It's just I don't really care. I don't really care how it got there.
Yeah.
As long as it's good.
It tends to be that people that care about digital and analog stuff tend to be boomers.
Perhaps, or boomer mentality.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I've had some boomers and some Gen Xers in my studio who are hardcore valve amp guys. And when they come in here, they go, no, I'm going to get my valve amp and that's the way it is. And then I'll maybe just catch them, through, we're halfway through the recording or whatever, and I'll go, oh, have I shown you my Kemper? What's that? Digital amp. It sort of emulates or profiles valve amps and it's digital, and then I'll fire their DI signal through it just to browse some amps that they like. Oh, well, I like the blah 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 PV Marshall Fender whatever, and I've actually managed to convince some so-called stubborn boomers that the Kemper, which is digital, is actually better than the amp recorded in the studio. So someone brought in a really nice Fender amp. It was an old valve amp. And as it happens, the Kemper has a profile of that brand, that actual amp. Obviously a different amp sampled somewhere else. And the Kemper one just sounded richer and sweeter and better in almost every way than the real one that was sitting booming away in my live room, set up with all the mics and all the proper sound isolation. It wasn't as if I was recording it badly. It just so happened that in that instance the Kemper sounded nice, and that just, it goes to show like it doesn't really matter what it is. If it sounds better, it's better.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like we talked about this before in the gear episode, that sometimes cheap gear is good, like your little P-Bass.
Yeah.
If it's good, it's good. It doesn't matter if it's digital or analog. If it's good, it's good.
Yeah, for sure. There was another point which just popped into my head, but it is important. Is that look at depending on how you want to record it. If you want to record it in like a big live room, everybody playing at the same time. Like real old school, check that they have the facilities to do that.
Yeah, yeah.
Because otherwise you're going to be very disappointed.
Yeah.
I guess this would go back to like playing things that are meant to be sort of recorded live, jazz and things like that. Things that are very spontaneous.
Can I add to my first point? I've just thought of a point that would tie in with this to the studio owner's perspective. I offer potential clients, a chance to come to the studio just for a visit, to go and see just come in for a cup of coffee, have a chat, and check out the premises. That's a really good way of checking the place out, having a wee chat, having a cup of tea, looking round, and the studio guy will talk you around like, oh, this is the kind of procedures we go through, this is the room, and then you'll be there with your bandmates. You go, all right, okay, maybe we can set up as a band and play live like we do. That's how we want to record. Oh, is there any chance we can track as a live band and maybe overdub the vocals later? Certainly, no problem. Or, oh no, we can't do that here because it's too small. I don't have enough mics. The isolation's not great. It'll sound terrible. I'd rather track you instrument by instrument. And then at that point you can go, well, that's not really what we want to do. It's not, depends. Some people want to do that. So actually having a studio visit, see if the studio will offer that. Phone them up, email them. Is there any chance we can just come in for a visit, like for an hour, just to check the place out?
Yeah.
That's always... That can get rid of a lot of doubts and maybe questions you have. That usually helps. That's kind of what I wanted. I forgot to put that in.
Cool.
Kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Plus, you can select out the two studios that I have been to that aren't my own. I always hear this sort of stereotypical cave-dwelling studio guy, with a really stinky old black t-shirt and long hair, and his studio's just manky and it's filled with dust and like beer cans and stuff. It's so like it actually exists. These people do exist. So you can go and give them a little visit, and if their studio is a tip,
it says a lot.
It says a lot about what they're gonna do for you. If the place is neat and tidy and everything's filed away and the XLR cables are hanging nicely on the wall or filed away in a cabinet and everything's all properly organized, you think, oh, okay, this guy's kind of he's gonna treat my music with respect because I can see that he treats his studio with respect, and that goes a long way for me personally. Some people don't care about that. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, if it does make a difference if somebody has their studio in order or not. It says a lot about how they generally approach work. But yeah, I haven't really been in the position of, like I said before, booking studios. I have been to other studios where somebody else is, booked, and I don't know if it's just I seem to have loads of luck in my good luck well, because every time I've been to a studio, it's always been a good time, and the engineers I've worked with have been great, and
that's the most important thing is just to have fun. If you can't have fun and the guy's just like, blah blah, you're crap, blah blah blah, do another take, terrible musician, blah 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 blah. It should be a fun, creative process. I've heard horror stories of sound engineers who are just absolutely raging all the time. It's not a fun place to be,
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, that's all I have to say on that.
Yeah, it was just a little thing that I thought about the other day.
No, it's a good thing.
Because
good thing to.
It's something it never crosses my mind, but there's so many bands that have to make this decision. Like if you're rehearsing continually and you're like, right, okay, I think we're ready to record. What's the first thing you do? You go to Google, you go recording studio, turn on your location so that it's like within a 10 mile, 20 mile radius of your location. You go, okay, there's some studios, right, we'll look through some of them. You're hopping on websites and then you're like, oh God, this website hasn't been updated since 2005. Nope, we're not going there. Oh, this guy looks really good. Oh, but it's the wrong genre. Oh, we'll go with this one. Oh, I like the sound of this. Oh, have you checked this out? So it's mostly that, and it's also, oh, my mate Brian in that other band went to this studio and he recommends that. Well, maybe check that out. That, I would say, gets the gig most of the time. It's through word of mouth referrals. Word of mouth is still the biggest marketing doodah. I'm going to use doodah.
So if you're listening to this as a budding studio owner, leave a good impression. Treat people nice.
Yeah. Yep. Just put yourself in the shoes of the musician. Like, how would I want to be? It's the golden rule. How would I want to be treated?
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, that's pretty much everything I wanted to say on that. Just because it's an interesting. It's different from choosing a rehearsal studio because the commitment's different. You're only there for 3 hours and you can choose another one at any moment. But a recording studio is a pretty big commitment because if you're doing something like a 10-track album, you could potentially be in here for 6 months or a year, depending on your schedule. You don't want to be miserable and you don't want to be like 7 songs in and think, oh, I wish I chose another studio. I have to see this to the end now because if we stop now, we have to scrap the whole thing and start again and spend more money. It's a big investment.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so that pretty much wraps that up. And as always, if you are enjoying our little podcasts, leave us a review on wherever you listen to it, if the review option is there. I'm pretty sure Spotify don't have a review thing. It's just Apple and a couple others. And
yeah, if you're on Spotify, follow us.
Yeah. And force all your friends to follow us as well. Just like steal their phone and hack in and just like click follow. You can. We also upload stuff to YouTube, so all the episodes and the Zoom footage will be on a YouTube from I think episode 16 or 17 onwards. So you can subscribe on YouTube as well as you can visit our website, www.levelupyourband.com, and if you have any episode suggestions or things that we've talked about before and we were talking rubbish and you want to correct us, we are very open to that. Or you want to just have a chat, you can do that. Send us a wee message. That's also fine. But next week we've got a couple of things in the pipeline, but we're not going to reveal anything yet. But we'll definitely be back next week with another episode. So until then, hope you're all doing okay, and see you next time. Bye.
Bye.